everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sports Center, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a 5-2 victory for the Winnipeg Jets over the Utah Hockey Club. And I can hear it already. I can hear a whole bunch of you out there saying, oh, yeah, completely different game, totally turned the tables. What a way better effort than we saw from the Jets against this team last Monday. And I'm here to tell you, and I don't often do this, but I'm here to tell you that you're wrong. You're wrong. It was my contention in that last game that we were 2 Dylan Samberg mistakes away from the Winnipeg Jets being tied 2-2, maybe going into overtime, winning that game, and us talking about how resilient the Winnipeg Jets were and how they stuck with their structure, which they had. I talked about that last game. I said their structure was great. We talked about their, I had suggested the Utah Hockey Club had done a really good job handling the Jets' pressure, enduring the Jets' pressure, doing a good job of moving the puck out of its own zone. I'd said that it was a pretty even game, other than a couple Dylan Samberg mistakes go the other way, and then you get an empty net goal, and suddenly it's a 5-2 hockey game, right? Well, tonight, for all the people who are going to come in and say, oh, man, this was just completely, it was like it was a new team. Well, the Winnipeg Jets churning hockey style where they get in and they forecheck teams into the ground, that wasn't there tonight. That didn't exist. The Utah Hockey Club still did a great job of handling the Jets' pressure. They still did a great job of exiting the zone. They still did a great job of getting in and setting up time in on the Winnipeg Jets zone. But just like the last game they played against the Winnipeg Jets, they were limited to shots to the outside. The Jets owned the middle of the ice. This was the same game with puck luck going in a different direction. Hear me out for a second here. Last game, Winnipeg Jets. The Utah Hockey Club goes out and earns a couple of goals, and then they get 2 kind of gifted to them. Dylan Samberg, we talked about it, had an off night, turned the puck over twice at the blue line. Boom, they're in the back of the net. It's a 4-2 game, 5-2, they make it. And there you go. Bob's your uncle, right? Well, here, what we're looking at tonight is the Jets go out and they earn themselves 2 goals. They get their first goal on the power play. Just an absolutely great goal. We'll get into that a little bit later. Cole Peretti going to the net, gets the right kind of goal, one of those repeatable goals with Vladislav Nemestikov creating chaos in front of the net and getting the puck over to him. But other than that, you're talking about, just like Samberg, a puck bouncing over a defenseman's stick. That leads to the Nikolai Ehlers breakaway going in the other direction. Boom, it's in the back of the net. And, of course, the bounce off the stanchion, which is puck luck at its finest. And, boom, it's in the back of the net. Empty net goal. It's 5-2. These are the same games, ladies and gentlemen. This is why I thought it important to give the Utah Hockey Club their due, because they gave the Winnipeg Jets the same problems on this night that they gave them last Monday. This is the same game, maybe a few more shots for the Winnipeg Jets, maybe a few less shots for the Utah Hockey Club, who are playing in the only difference between this game and the last game is they're playing on back-to-back nights. And you know me, I don't give excuses for like, I don't say to the Utah Hockey Club, well, you can't win this game because you played last night. I don't get into that. But I will say it is obviously understandable that Utah is not going to have the exact same energy level against the Winnipeg Jets as they had in the last game. But I don't buy it. I don't buy the last game that it was a terrible performance by the Winnipeg Jets, and I don't buy it that tonight the Winnipeg Jets ran them out of the building. This was 2 hockey teams that, in the style of hockey they play extremely close to each other, challenge each other in similar ways. Give the Utah Hockey Club their due. Couple of lucky bounces for the Winnipeg Jets are the difference in this game here tonight. They came in and they pressed the Winnipeg Jets, and they did it on the road, coming off of a back-to-back. I don't see it. I know a lot of you want to believe that the Winnipeg Jets at the top of their game cannot be touched. The Utah Hockey Club knows how to play the Winnipeg Jets. It makes for great games. I thought this was a great game tonight. I thought both teams showed extremely well. Puck luck won the Utah, and I'll say puck luck and maybe a little bit of a mistake by the Winnipeg Jets won the Utah Hockey Club the game on Monday. Puck luck and a little bit of a mistake by the Utah Hockey Club defenseman made the difference in this game tonight. Same game, ladies and gentlemen. Same game. Anyways, that's my take on the whole thing. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business for his take on the whole thing. Here comes Kenny, folks. Kenny, some people just don't get it, or maybe they're late. Maybe they missed the whole soliloquy. But Scardy says, I thought Renny said that Utah's coach had figured the Jets. So what he didn't figure out, Scardy, I guess, is how to play those Jets stanchions. You got a real compelling case for you here tonight, though. But Ken, you're looking like $1 million as always. You got the hitman look going on here. I busted out the green suit. Some
Indeed.
people are going to think that this is a newbie. It's not. I've just been too fat to wear it for the last couple of years. So if you thought Renny was a little bit extra grumpy these last couple of weeks, you're probably right. Shaving down aggressively a whole bunch of pounds so I could get back into my suit takes its toll on my mental health, which was suffering, we could say, over the last.
And you weren't golfing the last 3 days, so
rub it in, Ken.
Yeah,
rub it in. Here I go. I'm starving over here.
And you hate golf. Don't worry.
Your plate overfloweth. Regardless, Ken, both of us looking like our plates are overflowing, and of course they are, because we headed on down to Corydon Avenue and walked into Vittorio Rossi, loudly proclaimed that Kenny and Renny sent us. Yes, we talk about ourselves in the third person, just like you should talk about us anyways, because if you do, you walk in, you ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. Ken, what'd you see in that game?
Yeah, I mean, I think two things can be true here. I mean, I think that Utah played another very good game against the Jets, even though their tank probably wasn't quite as full as Monday. But I also think the Jets certainly elevated their game from Monday's effort, did a better job of getting to the hard areas. I mean, the Cole Peretti game winner is a great example. The Jets didn't get to those spots around the blue paint, either to create the play by Nemesnikov to Peretti finding quiet ice. Even the goal that gets blown early, the Kapari empty netter, when Ian Cole dumps Nito Niederreiter into Connor Ingram. I mean, who was spending time in front of Connor Ingram on Monday? Not a whole lot of people. So I thought that Utah plays the Jets extremely hard. It's so funny, Sean. I mean, even if we go back to the early days of the Jets, when the Blackhawks were putting up 3 banners in 5 years, for some reason, there was a stretch of time where the Jets, even though they were a non-playoff team, could roll into the United Center and give Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane and company fits. Whether they beat them or not, they'd give them a tough game. So I give Utah an enormous amount of credit. They disrupted the Jets' ability to create chaos on turnovers on the forecheck, and they made life difficult on their opponent. But at the same time, I do think the Jets were better than Monday. Again, was it night and day difference? No, but I think that their effort was much more, much closer to their standard. They had a lot of contributions throughout the lineup. Each of the lines doing something in their own way. Wasn't a banner night for the Scheifele line, on for at least 1 and maybe 2 again tonight. But again, overall, Jets solid effort. Full marks to them. But they got pushed hard again by. This is one of the teams who has given the Jets the most trouble, even though the Jets are 2-1 against them. So a lot of things to like. Cole Peretti, obviously. We talk about receipts a lot. I mean, I'm not saying I knew Cole Peretti was going to have a breakout game, but this is why, for folks who said I've been too easy on Peretti, it felt like, and Sean, to your point about where his points are coming from throughout the droughts. I mean, they're in games where there's a lot of easy ice. Today, there wasn't a lot of easy ice. So to me, that's the impressive part about Peretti's hat trick. It's not a hat trick it's not a hat trick against Vancouver in a 6-1 route where defending was optional. This was against a team that defends pretty hard. He went for the full buffet or the full bingo card, tic-tac-toe, whatever you want to call it. He got one beautiful power play goal set up by Nikolai Ehlers' brilliance. He went to the hard areas in the quiet zone around the blue paint to get a second, and then he's on the ice to be trusted by his head coach. Yes, it was a 2-goal lead. That's fine. But, Sean, it's a reinforcement of what we've been saying. Cole Peretti is a smart defensive player, which is why he's on the ice in a 6-on-5 or a 5-on-6 type of scenario. So unselfish play by Ehlers. Obviously, he could have kept it himself, but he knows. I mean, he knows what his line mate is going through, and of course he was going to pass that every single time. So big day for that line. We talked about it a lot. There has not been a lot of cohesion with them, not early, not during the lengthy droughts. In the middle, they had a stretch where they were actually pretty solid, but it's been a quiet stretch for that second line. And, a lot of people were saying, oh, what's Scott Arniel doing putting them back together? Right. I mean, this is another thing where coach's intuition ends up working out. Scott O'Neill is a smart guy, so not everything that he does turns to gold, but he's been making a lot of smart decisions this year. Putting that line back together was another one, and that line came through with the hat trick. So again, we'll talk about Ehlers' health and illness, and I mean, you were down there while I was writing again, so I heard the audio of it, but from talking to colleague Mike McIntyre, it was one of those scenarios where when Nikolai Ehlers said you wouldn't have wanted to see me in the morning or how my day started, you sort of got the idea without needing a visual, but sounded like it wasn't overly great, in terms of, let's just call it a flu bug, and we don't have to get into detail or anything of that nature. But impressive that he was able to answer the bell, B, able to play the way that he did. I thought Ehlers was absolutely excellent in the game, Sean. You noticed him a lot. He was buzzing. He was skating well. What do we got? We got 1 and 2 for 3. 4 shots on net, 6 shot attempts, kind of all over the place, all over the map. So Peretti, 8 shot attempts in the game, 4 shots on goal, hat trick, 19 shifts for 15-17. And also, Sean, who had Cole Peretti leading the Jets in hits on their bingo card? That was an impressive thing as well. So anyways, just a couple of minor things to get sorted through, and we'll deal with the rest as I step back from the buffet here.
Well, I think you have to go out and lead your team in hits after you in the morning describe yourself as being a prick out on the ice, right? Like that's the kind of game that he wanted to get to. He was asked, it was interesting that we get Cole Peretti on a day where we ask him basically about the rough patch that he's going through, and he responds in that way. I'll say this, Ken.
I should talk to you guys more often.
Yeah.
Another classic Perettiism there. So
I'll say this, you talked about there being no easy ice. I'll say this, one's and I'm not trying to take away from this. I'm just trying to, state where things were happening. Cole Perfetti's 1 goal is an empty net goal. His second goal, he is all alone with a wide open net, and his third goal, he's streaking down and onto. So while I like this, Cole Peretti had said this as well. This is just one of these nights where things turned in his direction, right? Like you get that on at the side of the net. Now, what I like about it, his first goal, it's a straight line goal, right? Like he's going to the front of the net. He's not waiting. He's not going off to the side trying to set up some passing situation. He sees that Nikolai Ehlers does a little kind of stutter step and then blows by his defenseman with speed, and now everyone's kind of on their heels, and he goes straight line to the net. We've talked about it on this podcast. We need to see more of that from Cole. It pays off for him there. The second goal, when Nemestikov gets it over to him, it's him going to the net where the chaos is. It works out in his favor. So I take a look at this, and I don't know that I need to go super deep into just specifically Peretti. I'd like to go into their line and what you thought worked with their line there today. But this is one of these situations. And just like Scardy came in and tried to give the old, Scardy was, there was a lot of room on Fett's first goal, he says. Someone was trying to shame me on my Peretti thing. And then remember a little while ago, Peretti had that 2-point game, and they got on here and they loudly proclaimed, just like you would do if you were heading into Vittorio Rossi, that I had like bungled my analysis, and then seemingly got really quiet again in the 14-game stretch in which he did not have a goal. I guess I'm surprised they're not here to try and get onto the train while the train is moving. But the one thing I'll say about this is like, I think I like the direction that Cole went in this game tonight. I thought he played really good with his line. I think he gets goals because he's going straight line. He's got a nose for the net, something that we've talked about this before. What we've seen from Cole Peretti here tonight, it is his first career hat trick, but we've seen him when he did, and you talked about it on the CJOB pregame show, Ken, that when he feels like he gets one, he feels like he's going to get a bunch. That happened here tonight. Cole should feel like that because for the most part, Cole produces points in bunches. Now it's the next thing. Okay. Now what you need to see from Cole Peretti is him showing up and starting to do this at a more consistent clip, because otherwise what we're going to be talking about, if the same thing happened after his last 2-point game, is another 5 games where the offense goes dormant or something like that. And then we're talking about him only having points in 2 of his last, I don't know how many games, right? But we've seen this before from Cole. It's one of the reasons people are huge believers in him. There's also a reason that people keep showing up in this show and talking about wanting to trade him and wanting to move him on. There's people in the chat room who are saying that he's a bust and all of these kind of things. They're doing that because they're seeing the point where he goes dormant for a while. He's got to balance it out. Cole's got to show up on the stat sheet every second game or something like that, or two out of every 3 games or whatever. It's great that he got this going tonight. I think he understands that the game went in his direction tonight. It's great that it did. I'm not saying that it's a fluke. He did the right things to put himself in the position to break out tonight. He's got to keep doing the right things night after night so that it's not just a 1-game breakout, so that we can stop talking about this narrative of Cole Perfetti popping up and looking great and then going dormant for a while.
No, bang on. And here's the other thing. Like, so the physical play, threw a big hit behind the net, a couple other ones, empty net is an empty net, but Cole makes a smart play along the boards to chip it out, right?
Great
to get
play.
it to Ehlers.
Great
So
play.
that's smart. I love the fact that he got engaged after Neil Pionk hit Logan Cooley. Cooley takes a 2-handed slash to the back of Perfetti's legs, which, again, if you talk about being a prick and being annoying to play against, then you got to do it, right? So I thought that that was equally important in Cole's game. There isn't going to be a hat trick every 5 games, but Cole had been quiet. There's no way around it, and I wasn't saying he wasn't quiet. 14 games without a goal for a top 6 guy who had 19 last year, and people were blaming the Jets for somehow preventing him from hitting his 20-goal bonus. I mean, Cole going quiet for a quarter of the season was also a factor in that. So, and again, this year it was 14 without a goal. There's no sugarcoating that. It had been a tough stretch for him, but he had tried to power through. And this is what we always wonder, Sean, right? Scott O'Neill referenced it at the podium. Cole is a year older. And again, as much as it sucked for him to go through that stretch of 2 assists in 23 games and 11 healthy scratches and then 4 more in the playoffs, you have to learn from that. And now this year, Cole Perfetti made sure that it stopped at 14 instead of 23. Would he have loved to avoid the 14? Of course. But going dormant-ish for 14 compared to 23, there's some growth there. But there needs to be further growth. And that's the thing. Cole Perfetti was drafted to be a point producer. Of course, all the other factors are important. And Sean, you and I were on the CJOB pregame together today, which was a lot of fun. Cole has to, yes, do all the little things that are part of Jets hockey, but he needs to do those things and be a point producer. He can't just be a checker. He knows that. You know that. I know that. Scott O'Neill knows that. The entire building basically knew it. And for him, this is a step forward. When you're sitting on 7 goals for a long time and suddenly you're sitting at double digits, now 19 goals, it's going to be challenging for Cole to get to 19, but it's a lot less challenging to get to 19 from 10 than it would have been from 7, where you feel like it's hard to find the back of the net for an extended period of time. Sean, his last goal was December 21st. If you go a month between goals as a top 6 player, it feels like an eternity. So even though he put on a brave face, and I love the positivity that Cole was showing and the willingness to adapt his game and do those other things that help him affect the game in a positive manner, even when he's not producing, he needs to do those things and produce. And today was an important step forward in doing that. And now, again, do it on a consistent basis. That's how Cole's going to build. And that's how the Jets are going to get better as a team as Cole continues to do that. He missed a lot of development time, but now he's trying to catch up for lost time, and he needs to continue to grow because the Jets need him to be a factor in a lot of games if they want to do what they want to do and go on a long run.
I just want to bring this up. Tyler Sattler says, I'm giving Utah a lot of credit for playing with the energy they did, despite that energy sapping style that they playing on back-to-backs and their third game in 4 nights. It reminds me of where were all the folks who were just constantly complaining about the Jets schedule when the Jets went through a tough point of the schedule, because surely they're here tonight to go in the other direction and take away from this Jets victory because the other team's going through a tough schedule. Because of course, no one would be imbalanced in that way or think anything like that. I go back to the whole thing. Can you say it all the time? At the end of the year, it all balances out. Everyone goes through their tough points of their schedule. Take nothing away from this Winnipeg Jets win because of it. But don't be excusing every single loss when the Jets have to play a couple games back to back the way it has happened quite often in this chat room. Okay, I want to get into that second line and them getting back together and what popped with them, but I will for sure say this, that putting that line back together, it really paid off. And if you're looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambridge Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. Ken, I'd asked Cole Perfetti the question, and I didn't want to make it sound like that line hadn't produced at times before this. They most definitely had, but he talked about, things got stale a little bit with that line. Well, I'll ask you the same question that I asked him. What is it about hockey in general that you can take a line that's gotten a little bit stale, pull it apart for a little while, and then throw it back together and have it come together with a spark the way that Nemestikov, Ehlers, and Cole Perfetti so obviously did tonight?
Yeah, I mean, self-correction is a massive thing, right? And I mean, these guys have done a good job at assessing the good and the bad and this sort of in the middle this year. So, again, I talked to Cole quite regularly during this dry spell, and yeah, I mean, he was disappointed that things weren't going as well. And there was a lot of frustration because the players were wanting to do the right things. And, sometimes your spacing isn't good enough. Sometimes your passing isn't quite on. Sometimes the goalie, makes a ridiculous save and you wonder, oh man, those are the kind of chances you got to convert. But today for me, Sean, that line was moving well. Ehlers is such a great driver when he's skating. And again, you'd be shocked that Nikolai Ehlers missed the morning skate due to illness, and it probably was an uncomfortable day for him. But he felt better as the course of the day went along, and he was flying out there. Sean, I thought Slav Nemestikov. It's a couple of games back now. Looks like he's got his feet back underneath him. I thought he was moving well, and again, his pass to the back door happens from going to the net and creating some disruption. So I thought that they just did a lot of things well. We talked, what offense coming from good defense. That was a factor on several of the goals. I just thought that they were moving well together. Their spacing was good. Their, puck support was very solid, and they made it, again, Nikolai Ehlers said it after the game, Sean, it might've been to you. He kept telling Cole Perfetti he's got to be shooting, right? Cole Perfetti is a great vision pass first person, but he's got a great shot. And in order to bust out of a slump, you got to increase your shot volume. So 4 shots on goal, 8 shot attempts. It's not a surprise that you're managing 3 in that sort of situation. So sometimes you got to get greedy. And again, I'm not saying Cole was greedy, but he looked for his shot more, and that was important. Ehlers just was creating all kinds of things. And I have a quick beef on the guy who said that the goal was an easy goal. There was lots of room. There was room because Nikolai Ehlers created the seam, but that's a tough goal. I mean, he still has to move his body position to hit the one-timer. So for Scardy, I think that you're not giving Cole enough credit for the finish. Yes, there was some room there, but he found the room because of a brilliant play, but he also had to change his body position to be able to hit that. So I just thought the line was really good. Sean, is there anything else that you noticed about their line today?
Well, I'll
that
be
stood out
honest.
to you?
I'll be honest, it felt to me like Nick Ehlers put that line on his back tonight. Like that, you talk about really good players being able to elevate other players. It seemed to me when you hear about, the conversations that Nick Ehlers has had in the background with Cole Perfetti, that he's been kind of like trying to coach him through this, trying to get him to understand how to handle this. So this to me is just a maturation of Nick Ehlers and just the next step that we're seeing from him this year. And to be honest, what we're seeing from him under Coach Scott Arniel that I don't think he had the opportunities to do under Rick Bowness or Paul Maurice. I mean, there was definitely something about those two coaches that there was clearly something that kind of rubbed them the wrong way about Ehlers, and it feels to me like the reins have just been entirely taken off of Ehlers. And to me, this is, if you're Nikolai Ehlers and you're talking about this player and you're saying, hey, you got to be getting to the net more often, you got to be doing this, you got to be doing that. Like that pass Nick Ehlers makes to Cole Perfetti is kind of it's amazing, just a great pass. But B, it's kind of his way of saying, okay, you're going to the front of the net. Here you go. This is what happens when you do that, right? Like basically he feeds Cole Perfetti for 2 of his goals here on this night. I thought Nick Ehlers was the best player on the ice for both teams. I know he gets the second star. Hard not to give it to the guy who's got the hat trick. But Nikolai Ehlers was the straw that stirred the drink tonight. The second line was clearly the best line ahead of the first line, which has spent way, way, way too many nights being the best line for the Winnipeg Jets this year. And I'm not taking anything away from them. They've been carrying this team for a long time and have needed more of what we've seen from the second line here tonight. But when Nick Ehlers operates like that, I think it just opens up the ice to a degree that Vladislav Nemesnikov could do a little bit more of what he's doing. But this, to me, Ken, I'm sure you've been on it before. I had an experience last year with a guy on our beer league hockey team who'd played with PK Subban in the OHL. His brother played in the NHL. And I went out and I had 7 points that night and a hat trick. And I very much knew that while I was doing a lot of those things, I was doing a lot of them because the guy on the ice was just brilliant. Every pass was on my tape. He was drawing guys towards him. People who've played the game before will know and will remember experiences where you play with certain guys and those guys make the game easy. I think Nick Ehlers did a good job of helping to make the game easy for his line mates tonight. We talk about drivers. I think Nick Ehlers has reached the point in his career where he's a driver. I talked, Ken, about Nikolai Ehlers being a player who, for a lot of his points this year, has escaped that second line. To me, tonight, in his Michael Jordan flu game, this was an example.
Good pull.
This was an example of Nikolai Ehlers going out and saying, forget about it. I'm not just going to live with this idea that I need to get away from these guys in order to put up points. I'm going to take these guys and I'm going to make them better, which is just I just think it's the next evolution of Nikolai Ehlers. Ken?
Well, we talked about this on the pregame show, right? There would be, DT was having some debate over whether it made more sense to maybe hold him out if he wasn't feeling good. You don't want to, Scott Arniel already told us in the morning that the flu bug is ripping through. But this is why we said it was important, right? The Jets are waiting for that second line to kind of take the bull by the horns and be that, complementary piece to what the top line has produced, to what the power play has produced. And he was excellent in the game. And I agree. I think that he did a lot of the driving of the bus, but there weren't, I don't think that Nemesnikov or Peretti were passengers. And I'm not saying that's what you're suggesting either, but yeah, I mean, it was an important deal.
Well, I'll tell you right now.
Read that one out loud. That was a good one. That was a good one.
Which one's that?
Kenny's water bottle. That was a pretty good one.
Lou centers a line with Kenny and Renny. Andy Johnson says
I took that personally. No.
Kenny's water bottle says Renny says that Ehlers had his Jordan flu game, and Michael Jordan just took that personally. Of course he would. That's such a great line. I will say this to close out the conversation on the second line. I go as far as saying that Nikolai Ehlers gave his line mates the Pristine Roofing wake up call on this night, found a way to take Cole Perfetti and get him into a place where he goes and looks like all the things that so many people hope that he can be. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. Ken, I said I was going to close out this conversation, but I'd actually
Hang on a
still
second. You said Chambers Plan at the end of that.
Sorry, Chambers Plan. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Hey, what's
Sorry.
going on? We're doing Pristine Roofing, I thought. Right
Oh, I did the
Buddy.
wrong one. Oh, I did the wrong one. Wow. Okay.
Straight up wake up call for you also.
Straight up Pristine
Hello.
wake up call. Yeah, here we go. You know what that means. Since Renny boned this totally up, take this opportunity to run away from this podcast and go wake up North End Rick at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want doing all your roofing, siding, exterior needs. The guy telling you exactly what you need to do. You can also get a hold of Pristine Roofing at 204-237-7663. Doesn't hurt to get them out at your place right now. If you got work that you need and you were going to wait for the summer, no need to wait. Plenty of time to do it right now, and it won't cost any extra, or it won't cost you any kind of value or quality in doing so right now. Yeah, I jumped to the Johnson Group. They're going to get double today. That's just the way it's going to go.
There you go. Well, when you're the OG, sometimes you get double.
And that's how it goes. That's how it goes. Okay, I do. Before we move on from Ehlers, I know we said we were moving on, and we'll get into the Rantanen thing. Maybe we should right now, but for those who don't know, Rantanen traded from Colorado. He heads to Carolina for Natchez, Jack Drury. Sorry,
yes.
Jack Drury. Yes, Jack Drury, and then a 4th and a 2nd round pick. Talk about an absolute blockbuster. But before we talk about that and the impacts that it's going to have, do you think it makes it any more likely that the Jets would follow suit and move a player like Nick Ehlers before the trade deadline?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I know that this has been a debate, and on many fronts, lots of discourse, lots of people in various places wondering about that. And I understand the theory, the whole lose somebody for nothing. I mean, I don't, asset management is important, yes, but if you are trying to win a Stanley Cup, asset management for futures is not a smart business from where I sit. And I'm not just saying this specifically to the Colorado case, but as it pertains to Nikolai Ehlers, if the Jets are not able to sign him before July 1st, I'm sorry, I don't see a trade that makes sense for them. And the Jets have, we've talked about this a ton of times, Sean. The Jets' best chance to put up a banner will be in the first 3 years of the 7-year deals for Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuyck. It's not impossible that they could win or go deep in years 4 to 7. I'm not saying that at all. But the best chance for them to win is when those guys are in the early 30s rather than the mid 30s or approaching the mid to late 30s. And unless you show me differently, I don't see a trade of Nikolai Ehlers that makes sense. He has been a point-a-game player, very durable. Yeah, he missed 9 games, but his durability has been very solid. He's an important and integral piece of the power play. I know that his playoff production is not at a level that the Jets probably like, or that Nikolai Ehlers. He is his hardest marker on himself. Nobody is more disappointed at 4 goals and 14 points than Nikolai Ehlers is. He knows what the narrative is going into the playoffs. He knows what he needs to do in order to cash in on his next contract, whether it's here or elsewhere. I would not move Nikolai Ehlers unless, Kevin Cheveldayoff finds a deal that makes the Jets better. And I have a hard time envisioning a scenario because most teams that would be in the market for Nikolai Ehlers aren't trading current players with term for a guy if you're trying to win. And most teams don't have $6 million available to them to add Ehlers anyway. So I don't see it happening. I mean, it's never impossible, and I want to make that clear. We've seen the greatest player to ever lace up the blades get traded, so everybody has their price. But I don't see a scenario where Ehlers is on the move. I think the Jets are more than comfortable letting this play out, and if they get to July 1st and Nikolai Ehlers finds a different offer or an offer he finds to be better, I would say the Jets are going to make their best offer and sort of let the chips fall where they may. Now, what about you? Do you think, I mean, again, I think the same about the Leafs.
Yeah.
I don't see a scenario where Mitch Marner is traded. Mitch Marner is in the exact same situation as Mikko Rantanen and Nikolai Ehlers. The difference being Colorado is a wild card team as of today. The Jets and Leafs are leading their respective divisions. We listen to a lot of other sports talk. I don't hear anyone in Toronto saying the Leafs should be trading Marner. Do you? I don't.
Yeah, no, and I do agree with you. Like the difference here is, I think what we're seeing from Colorado is that I mean, since they won the cup, we're kind of seeing a steady decline from this team, right? Yes, I know they went to the second round last year, and only went to the first round the year before that. But I see a team that just is put in situations where like outside of that top line, they're not really getting a lot from their depth. And we did a story on that for Hockey Night in Canada a couple of weeks ago when the Jets played the 3-0 shutout game of the Colorado Avalanche. And we had said, you take the three guys who were the top line that night, and one of them was Jonathan Drouin, who's missed a good chunk of the season with injury. You take Rantanen and you take McKinnon, and you take all the other forwards on the team, and they don't have as many points as that top line does. And that's including Nichushkin, who is one of the higher scoring players on the team and is typically usually on that first line. So really those two players, you put them with almost anyone else on the team, and they've got more points than the rest of the forwards. To me, this is, I mean, interesting part about this, Ken, Natchez has like 59 points, right? And I think it's 65 points for Rantanen. What will be interesting to come out of this is, what does Rantanen look like without Nathan McKinnon, right? Without the benefit of having the current MVP. But it goes both ways. What is Nathan McKinnon going to look like without that monster on his line who does such a good job protecting the puck? I was chatting with one of the injured Utah Yeti defenseman up there, and asked him what it's like playing Rantanen. And he's like, well, the guy is just a horse. He's impossible to get the puck from, except most guys who are horses, like Nino Nieder right here, he can still score, but usually he says, this guy's a horse. He's got the puck. You can't get it off him. And yet he can like get a pass out from nowhere, and all of a sudden it's over and in the back of the net. He said, like, he's as skilled as almost anyone in the league, and yet he's as hard to get the puck off of as anyone in the league. He's quite the imposing figure here. It'll be interesting, though. Natchez has become a driver. He's not a guy who's dependent on other guys. So maybe what happens here is, to your point, maybe Gabe Landeskog is coming back. Maybe Natchez, now you can put him on a second line and try and drive that line. Maybe that means you can, I don't know, try and like spread things out and get Middlestat on the third line and try and get him going. I'm trying to make sense of it here, Ken. In the end, I really can't. I don't like the trade. I talked about it with you today. I used to watch the Avalanche, and when Joe Sakic was their general manager, I used to play a game called Spot the Mistake. It was the shortest game going because Joe Sakic seemed to never make mistakes. He just kept making the right move over and over and over again. And I hate to say it, but Chris McFarland, since he's come in, the game is almost reversed. Everyone knows how much I hated that Middlestad trade for Bowen Byram. I think my analysis on that is looking pretty darn bang on. Outside of him having a great series against the Jets and outdoing Mark Scheifele's line in the first round last year, he went dormant again in the next round of the playoffs against Dallas. He'd struggled with Colorado up until the playoffs last season. He's struggling this year. You're hearing reports that they want out from underneath him. I don't know. Like you said it, Ken, this only makes sense if they're about to pull a rabbit out of a hat and do some kind of trade that sends Casey Middlestad to the Pittsburgh Penguins, who would maybe make that move because they get youth and a guy who's like locked down long-term, and the Colorado Avalanche get Sidney Crosby back. That's about the only thing that makes sense to me here. But outside of Middlestat, like, unless if they don't want that, I don't think they've got the assets to move for that. And even if you do that, Ken, you've still got a lineup to me that is deficient in scoring on your third and fourth lines. I know Sidney Crosby is the kind of guy you can put him with anyone and they're going to do just fine. But this team to me just keeps getting thinner and thinner and thinner. And as much as I like Necas, he's not Rantanen. I think this is another trade that is not going to age as well, although I don't think it will be bad as the Mittelstadt trade.
Yeah, totally fair. But I mean, the thing, again, a lot of people saying, well, Necas will just resign. Well, he's also a UFA at the end of next year. So, Sean, the whole idea of moving past Rantanen because you can't sign him, you're trying to extend the window. What did you extend the window 1 year? I mean, I don't know. I mean, when you have Makar and McKinnon and Rantanen prior until tonight, your best window is with those three players. It's three of the best 10 players in the NHL.
Just quickly, though, if you take a look at it, the reports are suggesting that Colorado understood that they were not going to be able to re-sign Rantanen. I mean,
and I get that.
So maybe you will be able to re-sign Necas, and if you do, you get a fairly young player who's a good, solid player who's showed well and actually seems to be getting better and better underneath a guy like McKinnon. Maybe he'll start picking up a little bit more magic. Who knows what he'll turn into? But they're trying to carry something forward. The other part about it, Ken, is if they're not spending that money, maybe if you bring in Necas, maybe now they can actually go and be active in unrestricted free agency in the offseason and try and build up that way. Maybe it's one of these years where they looked and said, listen, guys, I don't really know that we have it. Maybe if we line up against the Jets, we can pull off some magic. I don't know that we're going to get past Dallas. We're probably not going to get past, the winner of either, Edmonton or Vegas. So maybe it made sense for them to punt just because they have something going forward. Maybe they can keep that guy around, and now they've got some money to try and address things while still having two of the biggest stars in the game, a goaltending situation that's fixed better.
Yeah, for 5 years, right?
Yeah,
I'm just saying. I mean, you and I love that we saw Rantanen put together some of his best work. We talked about this in the intermission. I mean, what do you think the meeting with Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar is like when they walk into Jared Bednar's office, whether that's today or tomorrow morning? I mean, you're moving a heart and soul piece. I mean, this is a guy who, did it the hard way, went through the American League, grew up with those guys, went through the tough times, raised a banner. And here's the other side. We're talking mostly about the Central Division implications, Sean. I mean, I don't think we're going to be talking about Carolina having a scoring problem in the playoffs, which has been a massive deal for them. They haven't got production from Svechnikov in the past. Necas didn't really perform at a super high level in the playoffs. Rantanen is a great playoff performer. So I think this is a great move for Carolina on that front, especially at whatever the retention is. So,
okay.
Anyway, sorry. And I'm not down on Necas. I'm just like, there's a big difference between, top 10 NHL winger or top 10 NHL player and Marty Necas on the rise for sure. But anyways, it's going to be very interesting to see how things transpire. And that's part of the beauty. And Sean, while we've been sitting here, I mean, what would be a kind of, not trying to be mean here, but if you're the Avalanche and you move Rantanen because you don't think you can sign him for $14 million, what if they go after Nikolai Ehlers as an unrestricted free agent?
Yeah.
And he signs for somewhere between 7 and 8, which is a lot less than 14. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm starting to see the complaints from people because we're talking about the Avs. We know how people hate it when we acknowledge the existence of other teams other than the Winnipeg Jets. I'm going to shift and turn this to a Carolina Hurricanes podcast. Not for a long time. The one thing that we're kind of sleeping on, I know we're talking a lot about the Avs because the recent history between the Winnipeg Jets, because of the Central Division and the possibility they could be a team that they face in the playoffs. But what's the big problem that Carolina has had for so many years that people lose belief in them is that when they get to the playoffs and in the big moments, they cannot seem to score. Adding a guy like Rantanen is a really, really big move for that team and kind of just puts them in a different light to me. the fact of the matter, though, is Nate just going out the other way. I mean, it's a good move for them. They've taken on that problem now. They're hoping Sebastian Aho can probably sell him on it and have him stick around. But it is interesting. I do think it makes them a stronger team. And to your point, as a playoff performer, maybe they get a little bit more out of themselves this season by adding what you think is a top 5 player in the NHL. Let's get to Rasmus. Okay, you want to just do the disallowed goal quick?
Sure. I mean, this is just, there's nothing really that you can do on this situation. I mean, in real time, again, it looks like there's inadvertent goalie interference by Niederreiter. Now, the officials missed the fact that Ian Cole kind of dumped him, and it was, at minimum, it's a tripping penalty, and at maximum, maybe it's a play-on scenario where the goal for Rasmus Kupari is scored. But the way it unfolded, the whistle clearly went, so there's no way of overturning a whistle, right? So there isn't really much to discuss, and there's nothing to challenge. So it's just something that got missed in the speed of the game, basically.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I do think in retrospect, him being on the goaltender like that, he did get knocked down. Scott Arniel had the best take on this. He was hoping that they just would have called it a goal and then let the Utah Hockey Club challenge it. That said, the whistle had gone before the puck went in the net, so that couldn't happen anyways. So in real time, I think what the refs are seeing is that Nino Niederreiter falls down onto the goaltender, and that impedes his ability to glove and hold the puck. It's just one of these things. Hey, it's a fast game. Did it kind of go against the Jets? No doubt it kind of went against the Jets, but it's just one of these things that game goes fast. People make mistakes. I understand why the call was made. I understand what it looked like. And listen, if you're really that worried about it, I think karma got the Winnipeg Jets back with the stanchion goal. Anyway, let's get to Rasmus Kupari's game.
Solid, skating well, and again, it went to the right spot. Disallowed goal or not, went to the spot where the loose puck was around the net. I mean, I thought he's been given some big time responsibility here with Adam Lowry out. We talked about this on the last show or two. Guys are going to have to step up. This is going to be a by committee situation, but with the Jets reuniting Appleton with Niederreiter, Kupari is a guy who can check in a different way than Lowry because he's not nearly as physical, but he's fast, so he can get to certain spots. So as long as his reads are solid, that line can be disruptive. I mean, again, this is another night where the Jets actually did a really good job, I thought, Sean, against that Clayton Keller, Logan Cooley, and Nick Schmaltz line. Yes, there were chances for that group, but they weren't just an offensive wrecking ball, if you will, I guess. I mean, Keller has 2 assists in the game. Schmaltz does have a goal, but I thought they did a really good job against that line. We talked about Barrett Hayton, or I mentioned him as on one of the ones to watch today. He's got 8 points in 5 games, including a big week in terms of goal scoring. But I thought that Kupari did a really nice job of moving his feet. And again, it's essential for him to use that speed, right? That speed is a weapon, and it's one of the reasons why he's a guy that can slide into that role. I mean, I thought that Appleton looked more comfortable in game 2 after missing some time. I thought Niederreiter was kind of back to sort of being that bull in a china shop and making things happen. That disallowed goal is a great example. What is he doing? Getting to the blue paint, trying to get in the eyes of Connor Ingram and making life tough on him. So I liked what I saw from Kupari. What do we have shots on net for Kupari? He had just the one shot on net, 66.7% in the face-off circle, and in 13-23. So out on the penalty kill as well. So again, I liked a lot about his game.
I disagree with a lot of what the other people are saying here. One had said Kupari is working his way up the lineup. Another one said that the Jets have bigger plans for Kupari. I don't buy that. Now, by saying that, I'm not saying that he hasn't been a great player. I like a lot of what he's doing. He's a load to handle for the opposition. He's starting to make some nice moves to gain, he kills a lot of plays. Rasmus Kupari is a great example of what like maybe one of the best examples in the league of what he is, which is a fourth line player, and that's how he's going to be used. But all this idea that, oh, he's inching his way up the lineup, or that they've got bigger plans for him, where is he going to go? Where is he going? Where are you suggesting that he's going? Do you think he's going to go to the second line with his? I mean, we've already talked about Cole Perfetti, and Cole Perfetti got pushed down the lineup a little bit because he's not producing enough. Rasmus Kupari does a lot of things great, but one thing that he does not do very well is produce offense around the net. He basically has the capabilities to own most parts of the ice anywhere on a hockey rink except for the home plate area. And that's like, that is, guys make their livings off being able to produce in those areas, and a lot of those guys who do that aren't very good in most other areas of the ice, but that's an important area. But I hear this all the time when Kupari goes out and starts doing well. People say, okay, here it comes, he's on the way up. It's this same thing. Rasmus Kupari, as good as he's playing right now, is not better than Adam Lowry. So the line he's on right now, he's not winning this job, folks. Adam Lowry is going to come back, and if you needed, like I had talked about before, any kind of idea of where you think things are going to go with Appleton moving back up to that line, I see them, and with that second line coming together and doing what they did tonight, and Scott Arniel talking about them the way they did, I hate to break the news to you, but Adam Lowry is going back to that third line. It's going back in that same place. Now, is Rasmus Kupari going to go up? Does Rasmus Kupari make Cole Perfetti a more offensive player? Does he make Nick Ehlers a more offensive player? Look at the numbers. They say no. So what he's doing is he's doing a phenomenal job of being exactly what they need him to be, a fill-in guy right now for a guy whose job he is not going to take. He's not taking Adam Lowry's job. And then a guy who will be a very, very hard grinding fourth line center for this team, which is a good thing to have come the playoffs. He impresses me more and more. He kind of reminds me of Cole in the way that we talked before when Cole wasn't scoring, of just all the other parts of the game getting sharper and sharper and sharper. Kupari is almost like the perfect representation of who the Winnipeg Jets are outside of great goaltending and outside of their high-end offense. Everything else about the Jets is to be really defensively responsible, to try and suffocate you, to kill you with speed, to kind of grind you out. Rasmus Kupari is almost the perfect symbolic player for the bones system that they brought in that makes them hard to play against. But outside of that, he has not shown to be any of those other things. He is not, you can tell me all day long until you're blue in the face, which a lot of you try to do, that he's just getting better and better offensively. The numbers don't suggest that. And like Ken said, as good as he looks tonight, it translates to one shot on the score sheet. Rasmus Kupari, people keep talking about how young he is. I think he's 24 years old. He's not a baby. This is not a guy who we don't have a very good idea already in his career of what he is and what kind of player he is. In fact, if you're talking about next year, you're expecting a breakout offensive season for Rasmus Kupari, it would be almost a little bit odd that a player who scored as little as he has would have a breakout season at 25. That's basically, he's shown us what he is. He's refining what he is to be more and more and more powerful at it, but he's not a scorer. And if you're holding your breath for that, I would suggest you get a straw and stick it above the top of the water so you can get a breath here and there.
Yeah, I mean, the only place for him to move is potentially if both Appleton and Iafallo leave as free agents, he could move onto the line with Lowry and Niederreiter potentially. But again, the Jets like him as a right shot face-off option. So again, there's not a Rasmus Kupari is not moving up to the second line. His ceiling is as a third line player. He's on the third line right now, and he's doing an effective job. And that's progress for him. I mean, he was a non-factor last year after the injury. He's showing some nice signs. But yeah, I mean, the chances of him being a double-digit goal scorer, that's a challenge. But he does a lot of other things well, and that's why he's in the lineup on one of the best teams in the NHL right now. Get a Snickers.
Oh, we should. I don't know. I don't know being mean, but hey, with this diet and the way things are going, I probably am. I just can't see it. Ken, time to get to the Johnston Group.
Incredible.
Got you covered. Play of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I just think this is a Nikolai Ehlers appreciation situation here for me. I know in the game, I know there was one very early that we both liked. Dylan Sandberg, nice job knocking a shot out of the air. I think you could take any of the blocks, the Dylan Sandberg block, the friendly fire, I don't think has got you covered. But I just think this is going to be a Nikolai Ehlers deal for me. You and I were, curious about, Scott O'Neill kind of shuffled around a lot of the lines, and we wondered if Brad Lambert was just going to be a placeholder. Why not just put Lambert on the second line? Instead, Ehlers rises up in the afternoon and delivers a really exceptional performance with a goal and 3 points and 500 NHL points, Sean. It's an exceptional number for a guy who's had 10 great seasons with the Jets and is a point-a-game player this year. And I just think that on a special night and a milestone night for him, including one where he has made sure that he is going to claim that puck, the milestone puck that is also the first hat trick for his line mate. I'm older, Nikolai Ehlers said, for those of you who missed it. So I'm going as a Nikolai Ehlers. He has you covered, much like our friends at the Johnson Group, by showing up on a day that he was clearly not 100%, but also classic Nikolai Ehlers, Sean. I felt worse and played.
Yeah. You talked about it on the CJO Bay pregame show. No fluke, not just a coincidence that with Dylan Sandberg coming back, the Jets penalty kill has been absolutely on fire. 2 plays. There's the 3-on-2 play, and the guy goes from one side to the ice, a perfect saucer pass, except Dylan Sandberg just reaches out like with his go-go gadget stick and knocks it out of the air and turns it in the other direction, just kills a play out of nowhere like it's nothing. And then there was another play, and I've talked about this over and over again on this podcast. Everyone on the ice doesn't know where the puck goes, but somehow Dylan Sandberg seems to know. Late in the third, when Utah was pressing, they threw the puck down to the corner, and Sandberg was sitting on his post and just casually stopped the puck and headed it out the ice. Dylan Sandberg is just a human play killer in the got you covered fashion. He gets those two, earn that for him tonight. And let's see if I can get this right, because I didn't get it right earlier on, but we'll give it another go for the Kenny and Renny OGs. Do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. Ken, we need you to give Sweet Lou a shout out before we hand out the rest of the awards.
Yeah, right on. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of our fine community, including this podcast.
Alex99 says Utah's a fast skating team. Why was Stanley playing? To me, there's no other answer at this stage. Logan Stanley is the Jets' 5th defenseman. Their usage of him is that, like, period. Logan Stanley is the Jets' 5th defenseman. There's no other way to put it. There's no other explanation. To me,
and with Lowry out, I mean, the threat of the toughness, right?
But I mean, even before that, to me, it's gone beyond that.
Sure,
it's they're putting him in there. They're using him in that fashion. He's the Winnipeg Jets' 5th defenseman. Transcanada Brewing Company lamplighter of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I'm actually going to go Perfetti's first goal. It'd be easy to go hat trick. And actually, honorable mention to Barrett Hayton's absolute roof job on the blocker side. But the pass by Ehlers is exceptional and exquisite, and then the finish by Perfetti, very good. And Scardy, he was saying it. He was impressed by it. I thought he was unimpressed, but he was very impressed because there wasn't a lot of room. So. I'm going to go with the Perfetti first one for the lamplighter here today.
I'm there as well. That pass is just an insane pass. Nikolai Ehlers took over that game. Like I said, nothing more to say about it. He's a guy who drives a line now, or did in this night for sure. Anyway, anyways, doesn't matter what Ken and I think. Matters what you think. Share with us your TCB lamplighter of the game. You're automatically entered to win win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your own, head on down to 1290 Kenniston. Join them in their tap room where they have all kinds of great beers, great food, great atmosphere, and great people. Everything about it is great, let me tell you. And
Absolutely.
that brings us to our TCB winner from last time. That is Jeff B, who reached out to me on Twitter. Jeff B, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I'll have the fine folks at the. I will send you a voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. It is the nectar of the gods. And Ken, now to your keg save of the game. What do you got?
This is a tough one. Connor Hellebuyck steady in 17 saves, but I didn't feel like there were a ton that stood out for me. And honestly, my choice is going to bother some people, but I thought that Hayden Fleury took a ripper from the left point that Connor Ingram, quite frankly, I didn't see, Sean, but it's a positioning save. So I want to salute the positioning. We talk about the positioning of Hellebuyck all the time, and it is exceptional. But I don't have a great recall of I didn't star very many saves in this one, and that's more a testament to him. But I'm going with the Connor Ingram save off Hayden Fleury because it looked like Hayden Fleury was going to score, but Connor Ingram made himself big through traffic, and you can say that it hit him, but he was still in perfect position to make the save. So I'm going with that one.
There's two that I would go with. You're right. This is another one of those nights where Connor Hellebuyck really was not challenged outside of the goals that he had scored on him. There wasn't a lot. There's two that I can potentially think of. He makes a stick save. I always think they're a fluke. Goalies will always try and tell you that they
the one off the shaft. Yeah.
That. So he saves one off the shaft that knocks the stick out of his hand. That's one. There's another one, and I don't know which defenseman it was. I don't know which forward it was, but the defenseman came in. He had a forward right on the side of the net. And he put the shot directly onto the stick of the player for the redirect. And to your point, big and boring, Connor Hellebuyck had it. I don't know that he knew it was going there, but he was in the right position. The player needed to back off a little bit to give him a good read angle. But regardless, it was a night where it was tough to find saves of the game because, like I had said, the Winnipeg Jets, their structure outside of the two goals that were scored, their structure was put them in a position tonight where outside of the two goals that he allowed, Connor Hellebuyck really didn't have to be great in order for him to win this game tonight. That's my and Ken's save of the game. Doesn't matter what we think, matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And the winner of our keg save of the game from our last show, that would be My D-Mart. My D-Mart. You know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name, send me an email. I'll have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. All right, that's it for us. Ken, anything to say before we go?
Yes, indeed. I know some folks have been asking. I am not in any danger of joining the likes of Dylan DeMello or Kyle Connor in the Movember contest with the mustache here, but happy to report the stitches have been removed and we're making some progress there, but the mustache will be staying a little bit longer until we get a little more healing happening. And in early, we're almost at midnight here. Happy 75th Kenny Sr. Big milestone birthday for my dad. He'll be celebrating in Mexico and he's likely to be listening and watching in the morning. So happy birthday, Dad. Love you. Look forward to celebrating when you get back.
Happy birthday, Ken Sr. Great job with this fella here that you brought together there. His skin's a little soft, and now he's got he could have done a little bit better work on the mustache that's going on here.
Ken Sr. rocks a mustache. Hey, he rocks a good mustache, as you saw at those pictures from the Vikings game that we had the early 75th celebration. So
Ken Sr., he is not walking in your footsteps in that regard. I was watching him eat tonight, and it was probably, I was staring at him, and it was probably 5 minutes before I thought to myself, is he growing a mustache? That's how hard it was to notice. Anyway, great work and happy birthday regardless, Ken Sr. The rest of you, thank you so much for showing up. Ken, you did a great job as you always do, and I would implore everybody out there before we get going here, if you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, please appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Furlan, the Johnston Group, the Kenny and Renny OGs, so nice. I talked about them twice, and Transcanada Brewing Company, and of course the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you folks. We will do this again when the Jets play the Calgary Flames on Sunday. Bye-bye.